Hey guys, Solomonster here. I wanted to record a little message here, which you're about to listen to, is my review that I recorded earlier of the UK Championship Tournament this past weekend on the WWE Network. I was able to do something a little bit different for this. I took some live phone calls, and that all worked out great, but upon listening to the audio back, I did notice something very annoying on my end. Even though I'm using the same microphone I always use, which is a very good microphone, and I never have this issue, I think that what happened was you're going to hear a lot of moments where there's popping noises when I say certain words, and that is never an issue, and the microphone is the same distance away from me, it always is, but I think there was some interference or a setting or something involving the software that I was using to take the phone calls. And I wish I had been aware of that as I was recording it, but I didn't realize it until after the fact. I expect that that will be fixed, and so next time if I do a show like this will not happen again. But it did happen this time. You'll hear these annoying popping noises when I speak. The phone calls sound fine. I apologize for that. Some people might not be bothered by it, others might be, but just be aware of the fact that it's a one-time thing. I'll get it fixed for next time. It should not happen again. Hopefully it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the video and my review of a tournament that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I also enjoyed speaking to a lot of you and taking your calls. We'll do more of that in the future. So sit back, relax. Enjoy this review, and thank you as always for your support of the Sound Off. Welcome to another edition of Sound Off Extra here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off Wrestling Podcast, which you can listen to each and every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, and a bunch of others. I am the Solomonster, and this is my review of the WWE United Kingdom Championship Tournament, which took place this weekend from the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, England, crowning the very first ever WWE United Kingdom Champion. WWE is supposedly planning a whole bunch of similar specials in the future, possibly from other places, perhaps Japan. I do expect to see more of these, and after this weekend's event, I hope we do. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was an excellent event. It was a 2-day event. Part 1 was on Saturday. Part 2 was yesterday, as I sit here recording this. It's Monday, so the final half of the event took place on Sunday. Hosted by Michael Cole and Nigel McGuinness, who handled the announcing duties. And what I'm planning on doing here, I'm going to run through a bunch of random thoughts that I had. I didn't watch it live. I had to kind of binge watch it. I finally finished it a few hours ago. Enjoyed it thoroughly. I tried to avoid spoilers at all costs, so I'm not entirely sure what the overall opinion is of the events. I did see some hate online for the UK crowd, and I'll address that a little bit later on. But I just want to give some random thoughts. I'm going to run through some of the matches. I'm not really giving a blow-by-blow, move-by-move, match-by-match review. That's not really what this is about. Just my thoughts and impressions on a lot of the participants, some of the key matches, just the kind of the format and the flow of the show, the good, the bad. There really wasn't much in the way of bad. And just, what we're also going to do here is take some of your phone calls. This is a new component here to the show. I'm testing some stuff out, some new features for future Sound Off Extras that I may do. So we're going to take some of your phone calls. We're going to do some here, do some there. I want to get your thoughts, those of you who actually watched the event. I did see a poll that WWE put up on its Facebook page. There was a large majority of people who claimed that they didn't even watch the event. I don't know that that's a good sign necessarily. If you didn't see the event, you can call in and let me know why. But really, I'm going to try to get people on the line who actually watched it and get their feedback and just see what they thought, particularly people from the UK. That's really what I would be curious to hear about. UK, British wrestling fans in particular, what did you think of the event? They're more familiar with a lot of these stars than I would be. I recognize some of the names, but for me, this was my first real exposure to a lot of these guys, and I was impressed. I was impressed by a few different people in particular. So what we have here is an actual tournament to usher in a new championship in WWE, unlike the tournament that Pat Patterson won. I put that in air quotes. He won the Intercontinental title in that Phantom tournament that never was. in Rio de Janeiro. This was, in fact, a real tournament. I saw it with my own eyes, so I can vouch for it. This was a legitimate tournament. To me, it was like the Cruiserweight Classic. What I enjoyed, I think, most about it, some of the matches were really great, but what I enjoyed the most about it was unlike anything that we're really used to seeing from a WWE production. It was treated like a legit sport. They went in depth with the background packages, and Michael Cole was on his A game. He was prepared with all the history. It was something. It was a departure from what we are used to seeing week to week when it comes to Raw and SmackDown and the usual WWE pay-per-views. And to me, that's a good thing. The action in the Cruiserweight Classic, it's going to be hard to top that. I would not rank this above that when it comes to the in-ring stuff that we saw. But this is on the same plane when it comes to the fact that it was treated like a legit sport. It was treated like a real sporting presentation, like an old school wrestling presentation. And that's what I appreciated the most about it, personally. They went into the backgrounds on each guy, so you didn't go into it cold. You actually cared about some of these guys. They made you sympathetic. They wanted you to see certain guys win, some of the underdogs, win the tournament, like a Mark Andrews. And, I don't know why. I'll give you an example. There were a few different people I liked in this tournament, but in particular, one guy that stood out to me, don't ask me why, Wolfgang. This guy, Wolfgang, I really like that guy. And his music, too, by the way. I liked his theme music. Michael Cole and Nigel McGuinness, let me just talk about them real quickly here. I thought they made a very good commentary team. They had not worked together before. I know Cole has said that he personally has been chasing after McGuinness for the last 2 years, trying to get him to come over to WWE. So he finally did. Maybe they were friendly with one another beforehand, but this was their first time really working together. And there was really no rough spots there at all. They kind of had their own chemistry that they developed over the course of the 2 days. And I got to give praise in particular. I thought Nigel was really good. I had heard him on commentary before in Ring of Honor shows. Michael Cole, I think, deserves a ton of credit for this. He gets a lot of shit, sometimes from me, for his commentary on the main shows, and particularly on Raw. We have seen Michael Cole, when he's in his element, when he's clearly not being overproduced by a certain someone in the back. We have seen what Michael Cole is capable of, and he is a very capable, very good announcer when he is allowed to be. And we saw that when they did the Beast in the East special. I think it was last summer or the summer before. He, I believe, was the play-by-play person for that. He didn't have to worry about promoting this and that and hashtags and advertising this and acting all like, no, he was just, here are the matches. He was completely into it. He was in his zone. He was allowed to do what he does best, and he was very, very good. And we've seen kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, we've seen him have his moments. Unfortunately, he has not as many of those moments as we would like, and most of the time, if he's not grating on the nerves, I feel like he's just being way over the top about something, or doing that fake laughing that they have the announcers doing sometimes. Anyway, the point is, none of that here. Michael Cole, I thought, was awesome, and again, treated it like a legit sport, and he sounded legitimately enthusiastic to be there. And maybe that's the key. I don't buy into the fact most of the time that he or whoever the play-by-play guy is necessarily legitimately enthusiastic about what they're seeing. And that's a big problem. That's more of a credibility issue, I think, that WWE sometimes has with their announcers. We didn't have any of that here. So I just wanted to go out of my way to praise Michael Cole, because for all the bashing and the crap that the guy gets, when he's on his A game and he's doing well, he deserves a ton of credit, and I want to make sure he gets that here. So thumbs up to Cole and McGuinness. I don't know when they would work together again, even if this does develop into a weekly show. I don't see Michael Cole being part of the weekly announce team, for that show. So I'm not sure when or even if we'll ever see these two working together like this again. But if not, if this was just a one shot for the two of them, I thought they did a hell of a job. As far as the location and where they held the event, it was in the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, England. I don't know that they announced the exact attendance. I think it's a building that fits somewhere in the range of 2,500 to 3,000. And it reminded me of a bigger version of the Hammerstein Ballroom here in New York. One other thing it kind of reminded me of, being that they were in the UK, it reminded me of the Royal Albert Hall, which is where WWE, they once did a big show there. I want to say it was in late 91. They had a big battle royal. British Bulldog, who I think had just come back to the company, he won the battle royal. It was only a few months before the 92 Royal Rumble, which is a match that if you've listened to the sound off, I know a little bit about that match. But I just thought it was a great venue for a wrestling show. It really looked cool, and it looked packed. The UK crowd. I mentioned before, I did see some hate. I wasn't reading up too much on this because I didn't want, spoilers, but I saw some hate online for the UK crowd, and I disagree. I thought the UK crowd was awesome. There was that one moment where Charlie Caruso, I guess, was giving an update on, I think it might have been Tyler Bate, and it came across over the PA system when it was only intended for the TV audience, and so everybody could hear her in the middle of this match that was taking place, and so they kind of booed, and then they chanted Botchamania. I thought that was kind of funny. I just thought it's that kind of enthusiasm and fun atmosphere that is missing from the weekly crowds on TV. And maybe if the crowd, for example, on Monday Night Raw didn't sound comatose every single week, not that it changes the product, it changes what we're seeing on screen in the ring. I mean, if you have a boring, shitty show, just because the crowd is chanting and jumping up and down, does it automatically make it a thumbs-up show? But I do think there is something to be said for having an enthusiastic crowd that seems alive, like they have a pulse and a beating heart and actually gives a shit about what they're seeing. And the one thing you could say about the UK fans, typically, more often than not, is that they are generally very enthusiastic, and they are very much into what they're seeing, and they're very loud. And yes, they have their songs. I could see where some people might be annoyed by that. Didn't bother me. They were there to have a good time. And even the matches where there were extended rest holds, or maybe there was a kind of like a quiet moment, they weren't chanting boring. They weren't sitting on their hands. If there was a slow point in the match, they broke into some other song. They broke into some other chant. But they were there to have fun. I think it did make for a better show. I don't know where all the hate is coming from. Believe me, I've seen crowds, be it in the UK or elsewhere, Full Sail, for example. There are crowds that piss me off and get on my nerves. And I can't say I'm a big fan of this new trend now, which is apparently extended overseas. Thank you to Ty Dillinger, where guys are on the outside of the ring, the referee starts his count, and he's trying to count, and everyone's like, 10, right? That's the new thing now. I don't like it, but again, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it. I applaud the crowd. I thought they were great, and I thought they added to the show. Each of the 2 nights, they showed different promoters from companies like ICW and Progress that they invited who were sitting in the crowd. I thought that was kind of cool. So let's just get into the matches and some of the talent here. Actually, let me just bring the tournament bracket up here because I really don't want to leave anybody out. The first night, they had all of the opening round matches, and the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals were saved for night 2. So they broke it up into 2 hours each. The entire tournament, the broadcast, both parts put together were 4 hours, maybe a little more than 4 hours. In the opening match, they had a guy by the name of H.C. Dyer who lost. He did not advance. But in that opening match, he was the first guy out of anybody in the tournament who actually impressed me. And what I found impressive about this guy, and I wouldn't know him from a frickin' hole in the wall. I never even heard of him before. The first vertical leap he did, or leapfrog, or whatever it was, I mean, that guy got some height, and he seemed like a pretty big guy. So this guy jumps up in the air, and he got pretty high up there. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Later on, he went for a frog splash that I think may have missed, and he got some height on that too. So the thing I noticed about this guy, and I have no idea, we may never hear from him again. Who knows if they end up having a weekly show, if he'll be extended a contract, I don't know. I'd like to see him again, because what little I saw of him here, I was impressed by. I really was. I liked it. And apparently he's only 20 years old. He's a young guy, right? You got to think that's what they're going to want to be looking for. They're going to want to be looking for young guys. In fact, look at who won the tournament. The guy who won the tournament is even younger than him. And so you find these guys that are that young and don't have as many miles on their body. Because we also had our share of guys in this tournament they were talking about. This guy's 35, right? So you had a nice mix, I thought, of I don't know if I can call them rookies, but you had a nice mix of the young guys and the older guys. which was also kind of cool because they were able to tell those stories. Hey, this guy, he's 19, he's 20, it's his first big opportunity. Is he going to be nervous? And then on the flip side, you had guys in the tournament who were in their mid-30s who, I think, as Cole said at one point, this could be this guy's last possible hurrah. This could be his last opportunity if he doesn't win the whole thing. Very similar to what they did with Brian Kendrick in the Cruiserweight Classic. I don't know exactly how old Kendrick is. He's got to be in his mid-30s also. And they did that exact same story with him. You know, this could be his last shot. He's got to win this tournament. And it made him, even though let's be honest, I mean, he was a heel. He certainly wrestled like a heel in a lot of those matches. But it turned him into a sympathetic figure. So they did that with some of the guys in this tournament here as well. But anyway, H.C. Dyer in that opening match, he was the first person to really impress me in this match. Dyer took on Trent Seven in the opening match. Trent Seven, who has established a name for himself already in the UK. He got the win. He moved on. We had a match between Danny Burch, who is a name you would recognize from NXT. I don't want to call him a jobber, but basically he's kind of filled that role as an enhancement guy of sorts on NXT off and on for the last couple of years. I think they even gave him a name change at one point. They were calling him Martin Stone. So he looks like he lost a little bit of weight. He was in really good shape. He was in this tournament in the opening round against Jordan Devlin, who my first thought, before they even showed Finn Balor sitting in the crowd, and they talked about how Jordan Devlin is apparently the protege of Finn Balor. Balor helped train him. Before I even knew that, I looked at this kid and I said to myself, this kid reminds me of somebody. Just his look, I think the leather jacket, his haircut, he reminds me of Finn Balor. And then they went into, he was trained by Finn Balor. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. So they had a match, and I don't know what the planned finish was. I don't know if they had to call an audible and if Burch was supposed to move on. Burch took, like an enziguri, he took a pretty sick kick to the back of the head. And it might have been part of the gear that Devlin was wearing, one of his shin guard or something, that nicked Burch on the back of the head. And it caused a cut. He was bleeding pretty heavily from the back of the head. And the match, they pretty much went right to the finish. It was a very awkward thing where Devlin went for the pin. It looked like Burch kicked out, but the referee counted 3 anyway and called for the bell. And again, bleeding pretty good from the back of the head. So I don't know exactly what happened there. Had he not been cut open, what the finish would have been, if it would have been exactly as we saw it. But Burch took the loss. Devlin moved on. And what was interesting to me about that was the fact that Devlin, not so much at the beginning of the match, but as the match progressed, the crowd did not seem to like him very much. I don't know how well known of a name he is overseas or if he's generally a heel, but he definitely was kind of taken by the crowd as a heel, and he let it get to him, and he started acting more heelish, especially in the next round. So I thought that was kind of interesting. When I first saw him walk out there, I didn't look at him and think, this guy's a heel, clearly. But it became very apparent over time that that's kind of the role that he was out there to play. Pete Dunn. Pete Dunn is a name that I was aware of. Again, I haven't seen that much of his work. I've seen a few matches that he's been in. He may have come into the tournament with the biggest name of anybody. Current Progress World Champion, I believe. He might actually be one half of the tag team champions in Progress as well. They call him the Bruiserweight. The crowd broke into Bruiserweight chants numerous times. And I don't know, it might just be the gear that he was wearing. I think Nigel McGuinness made the comment on commentary that, the color of the gear, it's like this maroon color, it kind of either reminded him of, or whatever, it made him think of Daniel Bryan, because that's the color gear that when he was Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor, that's kind of what he wore. That's not what I thought when I looked at this guy, and again, whether it was the gear he was wearing or just the style, he reminded me of an old William Regal, which is interesting because he and Regal had a couple of run-ins as the tournament progressed, and he is most definitely a heel, and certain dastardly things that he did, and Regal would get up in his face, and it was almost like they were setting something up between Pete Dunne and William Regal, but that's who he reminded me of. And in the opening round, Dunn had a match against Roy Johnson. I'm not really familiar with him. I can't say that he really stood out to me at all. Dunn did win his match and he moved on. There was also a match between Saxon Huxley and Sam Gradwell, two people, again, I'm not really familiar with them. I know Gradwell, they said, is the hometown boy here from Blackpool, and so the crowd got behind him. Honestly, can't think of anything about either one of these guys that really impressed me. Gradwell got the win. He moves on. Just looking at some of the other opening round matches here, we had Joseph Connors and James Drake. Cole, first of all, Michael Cole on commentary made the comment. He says that he thought Connors is a legit main eventer. He goes, you got to watch this guy. He's a legit main eventer. Well, if he is, I didn't see it here. Not saying he's bad, but having watched this guy in a couple of matches in this tournament, I can't say that my first thought was, hey, this guy could be a main eventer. I thought that about some of the other guys in this tournament. I think that, for example, about Pete Dunn, but not about Joseph Connors. And the big thing was, Connors was missing half an ear, I think, from an accident when he was younger. And it was kind of gnarly. We got a shot of the ear. A little Mick Foley action going on there. Cole also made the comment when his match was over with Drake. I think he called it the match of the night. Or he said this... I think when the match was over, he said that this is going to end up being the match of the night or something. And they were showing the final montage at the end of part 1 on Saturday night. And all I could think is, well, I saw the match between Tyler Bate and Tucker. And I don't know what Michael Cole was talking about, but the Connors-Drake match was most definitely not the match of the night, either night. The match of the night, the best match of the first round to me was Tyler Bate and Tucker. I thought they saved the best for last. They had a pretty damn good match. I thought that super duper kick, I think Tucker calls it. He nailed this super duper kick on Tyler Bate, which is basically a super kick. But he kicks you as hard as he possibly can in the face. And McGinnis on commentary was kind of flipping out about it. I was flipping out sitting here just watching it. He knocked Bate right out of the ring with it. That was unreal, that kick was. But Tyler Bate got the win in the end. The name of his finisher escapes me, but it's basically, you know what it reminded me of? It reminds me of the old Ahmed Johnson Pearl River Plunge, just not quite as rough around the edges as Ahmed sometimes when he would hit that move, but that's basically what it was. It was like a tiger suplex, and Tyler Bate got the win. So those are the initial thoughts that I jotted down about the opening round. Again, I'm not going to review each match. I thought overall we saw some good matches, and I did think that the last match on night 1 was the best match, but nothing blow away. And I don't know if that was by design or not, but certainly night 2 was a completely different story. But night 1, there was nothing blow away. It was good. I enjoyed the presentation. I got familiar with some of the guys. Again, Wolfgang. I really probably shouldn't skip over some of these first round matches here, but let me just bring the bracket up here. I know I didn't talk about the Wolfgang match. He took on Tyson T-Bone. Again, nothing really spectacular about these other matches, which is why I didn't bring him up. Mark Andrews, of course, from TNA, you know him. Thankfully, they were not calling him Mandrews, even though he had Mandrews on his tights. I don't know on night 1, but on night 2 he did. I would just call him Mark Andrews, personally. He was in this tournament. He looked very impressive. But those really are the only notes I have about the opening night. That pretty much sums things up pretty well. They had a presentation. I thought this was also very well done. At the end of the first night, they brought out everybody who had qualified to move on to the semifinal round. They had them on stage with William Regal. And they very early on here, on this first night, established the fact that Pete Dunn is an evil SOB. In fact, on commentary at one point, Michael Cole even said that Pete Dunn is an evil SOB. He attacked Sam Gradwell, who was his opponent, or going to be his opponent the next night in the quarterfinal round. He attacked him during this presentation, and I think he threw him off the stage, and Regal was all pissed off and angry and got up in his face. And I thought this was actually very well done, and it was a nice little twist there to add some intrigue going into night 2 of the tournament, which is what I'll get into next. So let's take our first phone call here before I get into all of the stuff that happened on night 2. Again, what I'm really looking to do is talk to people who did watch the show this week, and I want to get your thoughts and impressions on what you think. We have our first caller here, who is in California. What did you think of this UK tournament this weekend?
I thought all around it was a pretty decent show. I thought day 1 was not as great as day 2 because they were trying to sort of keep it on the down low as to what all of these wrestlers could do, and a lot of the, matches in day one were predictable. But with day two, it picked up and there wasn't a single bad match on the entire show. So I think it was a great tournament as far as day two went, but all around it was a great tournament.
And I was just talking about that before, actually. I said, I don't know if that was by design or it just kind of worked out that way because of the talent that was in the opening round as compared to the later rounds. But I thought the first night we had a bunch of good matches, and I thought the last match of the opening round was actually pretty good, but nothing blow away. I thought that stuff came on night two. It was almost like they were giving you the appetizer on night one, and then they were serving you the entree on night two.
Exactly.
So overall, your impressions were thumbs up, thumbs down, or would you like to see WWE do something like this in the future, maybe in other parts of the world, maybe like a Japan or something like that?
It was a definite thumbs up. As far as other tournaments go, I hear they want to do that, and I'm not opposed to it because, British wrestling has become such a huge, it's blown up a lot in 2016 and the beginning of this month, and so, and with New Japan, Japanese wrestling is also, it's blowing up, and with New Japan, they've proven that Japanese wrestlers are also some of the greatest, so I think a Japanese tournament would definitely be something to watch and something to keep an eye out for.
Let me ask you this. Was there any one star in this tournament above all the others that you weren't familiar with before, but that stood out to you the most and you'd like to see more of going forward?
There was a key word there, and it was didn't know a lot about before, because originally it was Pete Dunn. Pete Dunn was definitely one of the people in the tournament that, blew me away. He was a fantastic heel, and I was thinking he was going to take the whole thing because, he was dominant in all his matches, and it looked like he was going to win. But someone who I didn't know a lot about that impressed me was one of them. Who was Wolfgang from Scotland?
I love Wolfgang.
Exactly, he was great. One thing I thought that was interesting is they mentioned that he has a Hulk Hogan tattoo.
I did not hear that.
Michael Cole on commentary said that Wolfgang has a Hulk Hogan tattoo, so I thought that was interesting. But another one of the people who impressed me was the winner, Tyler Bate. Just looking at him, I did not think he was going to win, and lo and behold, they impressed me, and he did go on to win the whole thing, which was very shocking to me because you look at him and he doesn't it was sort of like TJ Perkins. You didn't think he was going to win the tournament, but once he did, you were impressed with him and you weren't disappointed that he won.
Absolutely, I would agree. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for calling in. We're going to keep things moving along here. We have another caller on the line here. Caller, where are you from?
Hi, I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Hey, what's going on? What's your name?
My name's Enrique.
Hey, Enrique. So what did you think of the UK tournament this weekend?
I thought it was awesome. It's a much-needed show that needs give value to the UK wrestlers. They usually don't get showcased that much, and this gave them an opportunity to get showcased.
Was there any one person, if you had to pick one, that really stood out to you above all the rest?
I was Pete Dunn, man, all the way.
Why am I not surprised? That's what I've heard. I've heard that from a few different people so far. Let me ask you this. Of all the matches, I think I know what the answer is going to be, but was your favorite match from night one, night two? What match would that have been?
Night two. Pete Dunn versus Tyler Bate.
That's a great match. Now let me ask you, I've seen some hate. I just got done talking about this a few minutes ago. I've seen some people who were not exactly fond of the UK crowd. I thought they were great. I didn't have a problem with them. They didn't, annoy me or anything like that.
When you look, they're louder than a crowd that has 15,000 people in a single arena, and it's only a couple hundred people in the UK crowd. It doesn't even compare to the US crowd.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't speak very well to the crowds that we've seen for Raw and SmackDown here in the States. So I think you and I are pretty much in sync with one another. I want to thank you for the call. Thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate the feedback. We're going to go to our next call here because we got a bunch of people waiting in queue. All right, I believe we have a caller on the line. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Blackjack, originally from New Jersey, down here in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Blackjack, what's going on?
Hey, not much. I loved the UK tournament, actually, and I liked it a lot. Well, let me not say a lot more. I liked it a little bit more than the CWC, because in the UK tournament, they did such a great job of establishing faces and villains in the show, and really making you hate Dunn, who was like the main villain, and then really getting over Tyler Bate. I think them putting over a young kid like that was an amazing move. You really got behind him during the.
Oh, I think we lost Blackjack there, so we'll try to get him back on the line. Let's move on to our next caller. Let's go to area code 908. 908, you are on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Blackjack. I think I got
Good. We got Blackjack back. All right, you were in the middle of talking a moment ago.
Hey, sorry, yeah. I was saying that I really enjoyed the UK tournament. It did a great job of, I think almost every character, especially that final 8, you knew who they were. You got an idea of, what their style was, how aggressive they were, whether they were playing a good guy or a bad guy. And they did a really great job of building both Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, and at the same time making you think that guys like, Trent Seven and, everybody knows Mark Andrews, we're going to be like favorites moving on, and really kind of threw the scent off of those two guys being the final. Really enjoyed it. I thought this was a better tournament than the CWC because it did a great job establishing it. So when they do shows in the future, I feel like, okay, I know who these guys are and what their purpose and what drives them. So overall, enjoyed it. Loved that Tyler Bate went over. I thought that was the absolute best thing they could do, is put a young guy like that over.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. We got a lot of people waiting in the queue, but thank you for calling in.
Hey, thanks for letting me on, Solomonster. Take care, man.
You too, man. All right, we're going to go to our next caller. We have, I believe, Michigan on the line. Michigan, you're on the air. Who am I talking to? Chris, did you see the UK tournament this weekend?
I did, and I only watched the first day of it because as I'm watching, it's just like, why do I care about this? Kind of the problem that they're doing with the cruiserweights. We don't have any reason to give a shit about these guys.
Now, were you familiar with any of these guys going into it, or did you pretty much go into it cold?
I really did not know who any of the guys were. I know the UK tournament, or the UK promotions are pretty hot over there right now, but as far as knowing any of the guys, I'm sure I'm along with a lot of other people, but really did not know anyone.
So if they were to do a similar type of tournament, maybe in another country, Japan or something, is that something you don't think you would have an interest in that at all?
Japanese, I'm more familiar with the Japanese style as a lot of other people are, with Wrestle Kingdom being so successful, but I just thought the UK wrestling scene just wasn't as popular as something like Japanese style. So I think a Japanese tournament would be more popular or more successful than like a United Kingdom or even the women's, because that, I just think the Japanese would be more popular to people and be more recognizable.
Okay, fair enough. No, that's an interesting opinion, because most of the feedback I've gotten so far has been positive, but obviously there are people who don't know who any of these guys are, and they're just not able to get into it, so that's completely understandable. But thank you for your call. I appreciate that. We're going to move on here to, I believe, this is Illinois. Illinois, you are on the air. Who am I talking to?
Oh, hey, this is Kevin from Sycamore, Illinois. How's it going, Solomonster?
I'm doing very well, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So, I assume that you saw all or a part of the tournament this weekend. What did you think?
I thought it was great. I loved the presentation. I loved the intimate setting of the ballroom they were in. Was that the same place they did the Battle Royal in '92 that British Bulldog won?
No, it's funny because earlier I've already talked about part 1. I'm going to get into part 2 here in a second, and I mentioned that event from Royal Albert Hall. It was at the end of '91, and I said this venue reminded me so much of that building, but no, they were not the same thing.
Ah, okay. I did like how, much like the Cruiserweight Classic, they set up each character's backstory or each wrestler's backstory. And everything, they made you care about why these people are wrestling, unlike what they do on Raw. not as much as SmackDown, but how Raw does it. They don't make you care.
Oh, I would say that there's quite a difference between what we saw this weekend and what we see on Monday nights.
And that's so weird. It's the same company, and they produce things differently. I mean, if they could do that for this, why couldn't they do that for Raw and make them feel special as well?
Well, I mean, I agree. They could definitely do a better job of making their full-time talent feel more special. But the thing is, I mean, what we see on Monday night, it's a variety show, right? I mean, it's a TV show, and this was...
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing about this, and it's also what I loved about the Cruiserweight Classic, is that they promote this and they put this together like a legit sporting event. And that is completely the opposite of what we see when we see the New Day doing their stuff with Titus O'Neil on Monday night, or we see, the Shark Cage in the middle of the ring and Jericho and Owens doing comedy. It's just two different types of shows. But I do think that there are elements from this that they could incorporate into the show on Monday nights. I don't think they will, but I do think that they could borrow some stuff from there.
Two standouts from the tournament I think I like the most. I forget the main guy that went. I forget his name.
Tyler Bate?
Tyler Bate. I thought he was fantastic. To the guys I love Wolfgang. I thought he was good as a big guy. Also, I noticed he had a big Han Solo tattoo on his shoulder. I thought that was pretty awesome.
You're the second person to bring up a tattoo that Wolfgang has. Somebody else called him before and said that Michael Cole mentioned that he had a Hulk Hogan tattoo.
I didn't see that, but I was watching it, and I'm like, I had to go back, and I noticed that's a Han Solo tattoo.
Yeah, I didn't see the Hogan tattoo either. I thought maybe I had missed it, and now it makes me wonder, how does Michael Cole know that this guy has a Hulk Hogan tattoo? Maybe I don't want to know.
And also, I thought Pete Dunn has a star written all over him. Absolutely.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, I would think almost with total certainty that if they end up moving ahead with any kind of weekly show, Pete Dunne has to be, the top heel. I mean, he's got to be a staple of whatever show they end up doing. We got to move things along here because we got a ton of calls, but I want to thank you for your feedback here. I very much appreciate that. Why don't we do this? We're going to take one more call, and then I'm going to get into my thoughts on part 2. So why don't we take area code 339. You are on the air. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
Hello, Jason. This is Matt from Boston.
Matt, how you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So I assume you watched this UK tournament. Tell me what you thought.
I thought it was pretty good. Not nearly as good as the CWC. But I just want to say that I think this tournament was 100% an ego move by Triple H. I mean, I think it's just a move to basically take over the UK scene, because I think they're going to end up signing all these guys, as they've already shown with guys like Chris Hero and Kimberly. So, yeah, I think it's definitely an ego move on the part of Triple H.
Okay, so you think it's more of just the power thing, let's sign as many guys as we can and just steal them away from all the promotions there because they're getting too hot?
Yeah, and history has definitely shown that Triple H, his ego is quite large. But also, I just want to say that Michael Cole was definitely not the right pick to do the commentary for the show. I think Mauro Ranallo would have been by far a better pick.
Really? See, that's interesting, because I actually just got done praising Cole. I thought he actually did a hell of a job with this tournament. It kind of reminded me of when he called the show from Japan, the one where Balor had won the NXT title. I thought he did a pretty good job.
I think he was more tolerable than usual, but especially the beginning, because I noticed both shows, he said, "Greetings, Grapple fans." Ugh.
Yeah, that was weird. If anybody listens to this, maybe there's some kind of UK tie-in, I don't know, to the old World of Sport. Maybe back in the day, that's a phrase they used to use, because that just came out of nowhere, and I kind of cringed. So, but I'm thinking there's some kind of backstory to that. At least I hope there is.
Oh, yeah, it was a little rough.
Yeah, that was weird.
But Mauro definitely would have been the better pick, because he did a great job on the Cruiserweight Classic. But Michael Cole was fine, I guess. He was all right.
All right, cool. Listen, we got a ton of other calls here. I want to thank you for calling in. I very much appreciate it. I'm going to break my own rule here. We'll take one more call before I get into part 2. Actually, this is a call from the UK. Exactly the kind of person I wanted to talk to. Caller, who is this, and where are you calling from?
Hello, Solomonster. This is Nam calling all the way from the UK and London.
How are you? I'm doing very well. Our first UK caller. I was hoping to talk to at least one of you guys. I assume you watched the tournament. I want to get your thoughts. What did you think of this UK tournament?
I did watch the tournament. First of all, I'd like to say, great show. I've been a long-time supporter, but first-time caller, so go easy on me.
Oh, hey! This is the first time we're actually taking calls here in this kind of setting. So don't worry about it. You are among the first callers I'm taking.
Excellent. So I've got two things to say about the show, and certainly the booking, with regards to the booking of Night 2. They certainly made it seem as if the script was rewritten to suggest that, I think two matches that surprised me in terms of results on Night 2 was the Trent Seven versus Wolfgang and the Tyler Bate and Jordan Devlin match, because I actually thought Wolfgang and Jordan Devlin were going to win those matches. I'm sorry, Trent Seven and Jordan Devlin were going to win those matches. But it turns out that I think the way they booked the whole show made it seem as if they made a last-minute change to elevate Tyler Bate to the top of the championship, to make him seem as if he was the unexpected winner. Because for me, I thought Jordan Devlin was going to be in the final, and I was quite surprised that the way the whole tournament just turned around to make it seem as if Tyler Bate was never in consideration. But on Night 2, certainly made him the fan favorite, and as a result, made him change the script. I don't know. It made it seem like he wasn't the favorite from the fan point of view from the beginning, because nobody in the UK talked about him as much as Devlin did.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: Were you familiar with Tyler Bate? I mean, you're from the UK, so were you familiar with him going into this tournament?
I have to say I wasn't familiar with him as much because I don't follow the UK scene as much, but just from hearing about the way people were talking about the guys, Pete Dunn and Devlin were the two favorites.
Okay, well, Pete Dunn, I think everybody knew Pete Dunn going in was going to be a favorite, and he was awesome. I think some people were probably shocked at the fact that he didn't win. I was kind of surprised myself, but I could kind of see with the whole injury and the story they were telling when Tyler Bate won. I mean, I was
grateful.
Oh, it was great. Yeah,
I very much enjoyed the whole tournament, and I was very surprised how well it was booked. But I certainly did not expect Tyler Bate to win the competition, and I think that's the way they wanted us to make it seem. Anyway, they wanted us to. The surprise element definitely worked, but I really didn't expect Tyler Bate to go all the way in the final, and I think that's just credit to their great booking, in my opinion.
Well, listen, I appreciate the call. We got some other callers I want to get to here, but thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate it. We'll take a few more calls while we're at it here. We'll go right now to area code 917. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
This is Michael, and I'm calling from Queens, New York.
Michael, hey, from my neck of the woods here in New York. How you doing?
I'm all right, fellow Mets fan. Hopefully this is our year, but we'll see.
I say that every year, so from your lips to God's ears, hopefully this is the year. So I assume you watched this. I assume you watched this UK tournament. Tell me what you thought.
I loved it. One thing that I observed was that they really emphasized storytelling. I felt a bit more here than the CWC, for example, with Finn Balor's protege, with Tyler Bate, with Pete Dunn. There was just a bunch of, with Wolfgang even. There's just a bunch of stories being told, and I liked how it all came together.
Yeah, I agree, and I was just a little while ago, I was just talking about how what it reminded me of was the story they told in the CWC with Brian Kendrick. They told that whole story about how he's this, veteran who may not have another chance, and Daniel Bryan was his best friend on commentary talking him up. But you're right. I mean, they actually had more of those stories here in this tournament, and I mean, I'll speak for myself here. It got me to care about a handful of guys who I had never heard of a day in my life before this.
Exactly. When you think about it in retrospect, I feel that perhaps they needed to do that because outside of perhaps Mandrews, which he had a fantastic showing in the tournament, we really didn't know much about anybody else. Well, Danny Burch, yeah, but besides those two, we didn't know much about anybody else.
That's true.
So in a way, you felt that they had to. And even when Tyler Bate advanced to the finals, you think that they finish telling stories, but yet Pete Dunne attacks him, and you're telling yet another story. Is this guy going to make it? And if he does, is his injury going to handicap him to the point of it costing him the match? And we saw that story unfold. And by the way, marked out for the Tiger Driver 97, and they called it as such. So that was the icing on the cake.
Yeah, that was awesome, and everything you're saying about storytelling is hitting home with me. I think that was one of the real, besides the matches on night 2, I think that was one of the real strong points of the entire tournament. I've got a couple more calls I want to get to, but I want to thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. Right now, let's go to area code 915, which is Texas. We have Texas on the line. Texas, who is this, and what part of Texas are you calling from?
El Paso.
El Paso. So I assume you watched this UK tournament. Let me know what you thought of the whole thing.
I liked it. It was really good.
Anybody in particular who stood out to you from either one of those nights?
Wolfgang. I thought he was pretty good.
It's amazing. I've asked that question a couple of times now, and before I even started taking calls, I went out of my way. I made the comment. I said, if I had to pick this one guy who I didn't even know, and I don't even know why, but I liked him. Excuse me. It was Wolfgang. And I've gotten like 3 or 4 different callers now call in and tell me I really like Wolfgang. So I think we're all in agreement that if they move ahead with a weekly show, hopefully they get Wolfgang on that show.
It'd be cool. I think he's a champion for another show, isn't he?
I'm not sure because I really don't know too much about his background. I was going to look into that later on, but hopefully if he's available, they will snatch him up and use him because I think he had a pretty good showing. Any other thoughts about the presentation of the show, the commentary, anything else that you want to talk about?
I thought Michael Cole sounded pretty good in the show.
I know, for a change, right?
And I think, yeah.
All right, well, we got one more caller here in queue I want to get to, but thank you. I appreciate you calling in. Let's go to just one more call here before we move on. This is coming in from area code 304. 304, you are on the air. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
This is Mitch. I'm calling from Huntington, West Virginia. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for calling in, Mitch. I appreciate it. So tell me, what did you think of this UK tournament?
Overall, I really liked it. Of course, I'm sure everybody says this. The first day was a little slower than the second day. They were laying the groundwork for the story that was being told with Pete Dunne and, William Regal, and it kind of planted the seeds for Tyler Bates. He was in the main event of the first night. Good wrestling all around. It got better as it went along. I think the crowd was the biggest thing that stood out to me. They were just really rowdy. I mean, sometimes a little too rowdy for my taste, but still, it's great to watch wrestling and see people really respond and react like in ways we really haven't seen in, maybe 10, 20 years on the stateside.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of the feedback I've gotten so far has been pretty positive. There were a couple of people who really didn't seem to like the crowd, but I didn't really find them overly obnoxious or anything. I saw people that were there having a good time and making noise, which is what I wish we would see more of here in the States.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to take the too ultra-conservative stance or anything, but like, as a religious man hearing a crowd saying Jesus sucks, it's like, whoa. Look at it as, well, they're reacting. They're just having fun. It's not like they're really out there trying to be heretics or anything. But
yeah. No, I don't think they were being mean-spirited. I actually got a chuckle out of that one because, we don't have to get into that. But before I let you go here, any other thoughts on the presentation of the show? Anything you liked, didn't like, the commentary, anything like that?
I liked it all pretty much. I watched very minimal British indie stuff, but this seemed like a better lit version of what I've been seeing up to this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously, the production values, nobody can compete with them on that. But I personally, I like the intimate setting in that building. I mean, I would estimate, 2,500, 3,000 people maybe in that building. And I enjoy shows like that. WWE, when they had the ECW brand, they did some stuff from the Hammerstein, and I think they got kind of spooked based on some of the crowd reactions, and so they never went back. But I do think that there's something to be said for having a rowdy crowd in a smaller building.
Yeah, and going back to the first night being not quite as good a wrestling night as the second, I think the crowd more than made up for whenever the matches maybe weren't as good as they probably would have come across on, Monday nights.
Yeah, and I made that point a few times also, but again, I think we're talking about two different shows here. You know, the Monday night show, it is what it is. It's booked like a TV show. It's a variety show. This was booked more like a straight sporting event, kind of like the Cruiserweight Classic. And I guess just having watched these two tournaments now, I guess it just shows that maybe I'm more of a straight sporting event kind of guy, because I've enjoyed the hell out of both these tournaments.
Yeah, it was much easier to watch, and I hope they do more of it.
I hope so, too. Thank you for the call. I very much appreciate it. We're going to move on. Just one more caller here. I'm going to bring in 314. You are on the air. Who is this and where are you calling from? 314, are you there? Oh, apparently they got dropped. So why don't we cut things off there, because I just have to give my thoughts on the second half of the tournament. Night 2 of the tournament. Clearly an improvement from night 1, which wasn't bad, but night 2 was the real kind of shining star of this whole thing. Wolfgang, who got a lot of love there in the phone calls, got a lot of love from me too. He got what I would think was a shock win in many ways over Trent Seven. People in the crowd, based on their facial expressions, seemed pretty surprised by that. So Wolfgang got the win. He moved on. The first truly great match, in my opinion, of this tournament was Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne. I thought the two of them had just a fantastic match. The place by the end there was coming unglued. Pete Dunne got the win in the end. But I just thought, of all the matches we had seen up until this point, there had been a couple of really good ones. This was the first truly great one. One other thing that struck me, again, Wolfgang won, and he moved on to the next round. And Wolfgang was in there with Tyler Bate. And Tyler Bate was, very, very much over, very much a popular figure amongst the crowd. And for the first time, Wolfgang started to, it's hard for me to say he got boos. I just think people were more into Tyler Bate than him, but they weren't reacting to Wolfgang the way they had been earlier. And so he's looking out at the crowd. He seems a little taken aback by the whole thing. The announcers even pointed it out. I thought that was kind of cool. You could see that his whole demeanor was kind of changing as the match went on. Tyler Bate got the win. He moved on. After Tyler Bate got the win in that match, Pete Dunne came out. And this was after Pete Dunne had attacked Sam Gradwell in the presentation the night before. Now he comes out, he attacks Tyler Bate, threw him into the turnbuckle, hurt his shoulder. They were really building Pete Dunne up as just an evil son of a bitch. And again, Regal comes out to confront. Regal is just beside himself. His face is beat red. He chases him to the back. And I was thinking, if they do end up creating a weekly show out of this on the network, and it's not a guarantee that they will. Again, I mentioned that WWE.com poll or the Facebook poll, whatever it was that they put up, and the majority of people, when they said, what'd you think of the tournament, and one of the options was did not watch had just an overwhelming response. So if this thing, and they'll be able to see the metrics and the quote-unquote ratings, if this thing doesn't do well, they're not going to move ahead with a weekly show. So I don't think anything is guaranteed here. I think they want to. I think that's the tentative plan. But, if the interest isn't there, then the interest is not there. It's not worth the expense of doing it. But if they do a weekly show on the network, I think in a lot of ways it would make sense to have Regal be the GM. Because, they have to have a GM, right? They have to have an authority figure, the guy who books all the matches for each of the shows. Not that I'm a huge fan of all these authority figures. But it would make a lot more sense to have Regal as the GM, not for NXT anymore, but for the UK show or whatever they end up calling it. It would make sense for him to be the GM, and they could even build on this budding feud here between him and Pete Dunne. They could have Pete Dunne as like the lead heel. Like, I was already seeing the seeds being planted. I don't know that they would want Regal to relocate to the UK, because this show, I guess, would probably be filmed over there. Regal is based now in Florida. He's kind of Triple H's right-hand man at the Performance Center, so this is probably all pie in the sky. I don't know that Regal would even want to do it, but watching this, I was thinking, man, they're planting seeds for something down the road here. Before the main event, we had a special attraction, non-tournament match. Neville came out. And Neville's just been killing it lately as a heel. I didn't think he had it in him. Neville has been kind of a revelation in a lot of ways since this heel turn. He came out, he cut a promo on the crowd. He said, yet again, I'm the forgotten man here. If I was in this tournament, I would have won the whole thing. And they had Tommy End, big star over from the UK. Tommy End came out. He, of course, is signed now with NXT. In fact, he has a new name. I think it's Alistair Black, I think is the new name that he's going by. But they put Tommy End on the screen, and they were calling him Tommy End. So he came out. And again, WWE, when they put this tournament together, one of the things that kind of irked some people, Pete Dunn, I keep mentioning him, right? He's a big star over for Progress. Progress had a big show this weekend. I think it might have been Sunday. And WWE put this tournament together at the same time. And so there were guys that had to go work the tournament who couldn't work these other events. So I guess it's kind of like a make good. WWE, they allowed Tommy End to work. I think he worked the Progress show earlier that day. He worked a match. They sent Finn Balor over to the Progress show to take part in musical chairs. It was like a musical chair segment at the beginning of the show, which I can't knock. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I can't knock it because I remember Ric Flair doing musical chairs on Raw way back when, and that was one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen. So I will not knock musical chairs. So Tommy End and Neville had a match, real good match, and Tommy End did not get the win, even though he's the brand new NXT guy, hasn't even debuted in NXT yet, and here he is losing in his first match. But I didn't have an issue with it. Neville should have been the one to go over. He did. It's a good showing for Tommy End. I haven't seen a lot of his work. It was very impressive. He did a moonsault at one point off the top rope onto Neville on the floor. That was kind of scary. So I was impressed by what I saw from Tommy End here. I look forward to seeing more of him now in NXT. Came down to the main event. The main event was Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate, they did allow him to compete even though he had a shoulder injury. They made that very clear. But they cleared him, so it couldn't have been that serious. And that really was the story of the entire match. He had the tape on the shoulder. They talked about how Pete Dunne is a submission guy. He has a submission hold that he's going to be able to use now, and what chance does Tyler Bate stand of winning this match? They really built this guy up as the underdog. This kid, I mean, he's 19 years old. And by the way, Tyler Bate's 19. He don't look 19. I was shocked when they said that. He definitely looks older than he is. But he's a 19-year-old kid, and so the arm injury was very much a part of this match. I love the story that they told here. I just thought it was great psychology, and it really got people. People were totally into this match. They badly wanted to see Tyler Bate get the win. And in the end, Tyler Bate, with his move, did in fact get the win. And Tyler Bate is the first ever WWE United Kingdom champion. Some people might be shocked by the fact that Pete Dunne didn't go over here because arguably he came into this tournament as the biggest name that people would know. Watching the story they were telling here, I wasn't shocked at all because Pete Dunne, they got this guy over as an evil, sadistic SOB at every turn. Even in defeat, he lost nothing. And in fact, if he was to, let's say, sign with WWE, if they did a UK show, they've got their top heel already lined up. His name is Pete Dunne. Tyler Bate, my first impression of him when I saw him, he's a small guy. He's definitely not a tall guy, but he's built. Physique-wise, he's in great shape. He's built. He's clearly got a lot of charisma, and he's a great wrestler. And so in one night, they have made themselves a star, at least in the UK. They've made themselves a star, and that's fantastic if they do want to move forward with a weekly show, because I think this guy would be a great representative to have as the champion. And when you've got a Pete Dunne and they can bring in other guys to, kind of be his first challengers for the championship, they still haven't explained exactly how this is going to work. So we don't know, for example, if the UK title is going to be defended in NXT, if it could be defended on the main roster, if it's only allowed to be defended overseas in the UK. They've said nothing. I don't even know if they know. So I don't know what the future holds for Tyler Bate or when we may see him next. If they'll throw him in there as a surprise in the Royal Rumble, I have no idea. But they had Triple H come in, Finn Balor, William Regal, Fit Finlay was there. They all came into the ring for the championship presentation at the end. One other thing about this that I loved, this guy was selling that arm right up until the moment they faded to black and they went off the air. So Triple H is in the ring and he's trying to raise his arm and do and he's got that injured arm and he will not move it. Unless he's really hurt. I'm guessing he's not. He was selling that thing right up until the point they went off the air. And it's just one of those, I don't know, it's one of those little things I kind of liked because we don't see that a lot anymore. Also, that belt, as nice as that belt is, I have to say this. I said Tyler Bate's kind of a small guy. That belt looked comically big around this guy's waist. Like, it almost looked like it was weighing him down. So that was a little weird. I think the belt could have been a little bit smaller. But overall, like I said at the beginning, I was thoroughly impressed by this entire presentation. I loved it. I loved the commentary. I loved the fact that it was kind of promoted as this legitimate competition. And I learned a lot about guys who I didn't know before. And I got to watch many of them for the very first time. I was very impressed by a number of them. I hope that many of them get signed, whether it's to a UK show or NXT or what have you. Maybe that's not such a good thing for the UK scene. We can get into that whole thing. What is Triple H's real motive here with all this? I've talked about this on the podcast before. But again, selfishly, I'd like to see more of these guys. And if that means bringing them into NXT, well, so be it. But I'm sure we have not seen the last of Tyler Bate. I'm sure we have not seen the last of Pete Dunn. Before we wrap up here, we got people that are still sitting in queue here. I feel bad. We have to take a few more calls. So why don't we do that right now? Bring a few more callers into the fray here. Area code 828. You are on the air. Who is this, and where are you calling from?
This is Ryan from North Carolina.
Ryan, how you doing?
Good, pal. What about you?
I'm doing okay. So tell me, what did you think of this UK tournament?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, it was good top to bottom. But while I was holding for my question, I saw the news broke where Kurt Angle will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm kind of more interested in your take on that now.
This is the first I'm hearing of this. Is this something that came from WWE.com?
Yes, it came from ESPN report first. They broke the story to them, and it should be on WWE.com right now.
Wow, this is the first. You just broke the news to me. I've been recording for the last hour plus, so this is the first I'm hearing about that. I think that's very cool. I think it is well deserved. I think that it is long overdue that we get Kurt back into the WWE family. And I think that it's going to sell a lot more tickets for the Hall of Fame. In fact, I might actually consider going to the Hall of Fame now, too. I think I ducked out last year. I wasn't as interested, and now all of a sudden, I'm very interested. So that's very cool.
Yeah, hopefully it leads to a WrestleMania match as well, but we'll see where it leads.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we've heard a lot of stories about what Vince thinks of Kurt, and, it's one of the reasons why Kurt hasn't been back for so many years. And also, I don't know, I look at this WrestleMania card, they've got Goldberg on there as an attraction, and, we'll see. It would be cool. It would be very cool to see Kurt back in the ring, and now all of a sudden people, I'm sure, are going to be talking about it, and who might he step into the ring with, and kind of looking up and down the roster at potential opponents. I guess Brock is already busy. Wouldn't be him. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But thank you for your call. I very much appreciate that. I did not see. I just learned something new live on the air here. Kurt Angle apparently going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. That's very cool. Right now, let's go to another caller. Area code 347. You are on the air. Who is this, or where are you calling from?
Gender My Balls from New York.
Gender My Balls. What's going on today?
Joey Nomas from Wrestling Soup said that this whole UK thing is a bad idea. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I watched the whole thing. I just binge watched it, and I finished it this morning, and I actually I loved it. I actually thought it was pretty cool.
No, but he said that the whole idea is a bad thing because of they're trying to rape the UK scene.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast before. Of course they are. They want to lock up as many guys as they possibly can. Look, if I'm a promoter in the UK, and it's kind of funny because they showed some of them on TV. They actually showed them sitting in the crowd. Hey, we want to thank the promoters from ICW, and they're all smiling. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you're sitting there smiling, but they're killing you right now, and you don't even realize it. So, yeah, I mean, Joey's not wrong. I think Triple H knows what he's doing. He's not a stupid guy. But just having watched the event, I thought the event was cool.
All right, okay. I was waiting for 4 minutes, so I don't know.
Okay, well, hey, I'm glad you finally got through. I appreciate you calling in. We're going to move on here. We got one more caller that we'll take before we wrap up here. This is area code 937. 937, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Carl Farnham. I'm calling from Dayton, Ohio.
So tell me, did you see this UK tournament?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good tournament. I can't say if it was better than the Cruiserweight tournament. I'd have to rewatch it and see if it was better than that.
Tell me, I mean, was there anything about it, whether it's a match or the commentary or just the way it was presented, is there anything about it that really stood out to you as like, wow, this is really cool, I'd like to see them do more of this?
Well, first of all, the audience itself, we've been saying for years now that the British crowd is probably the greatest crowd in the world right now.
Oh, the Canadians aren't going to be happy when they hear you say that.
Well, it's just that their chants, the way that they treat talent, whether they're heels or whether they're faces, they treat them with the same amount of respect.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they're there to have a good time. They're generally very respectful of the people. Like, I didn't hear anybody chanting boring or anything like that. You know, they're there to have fun. They're into the show, and like you said, I mean, the UK crowds, they have their chants and their songs and stuff. But you know, more often than not, I think it adds to the show. I didn't think it took away from the tournament in any way.
Well, Jesus was definitely over.
Well, that is true. There was one person who called in and was kind of like tongue-in-cheek. You know, he wasn't exactly sold on the Jesus sucks chants, but I thought it was amusing. But anyway, any other thoughts on the tournament here before I let you go?
I think Jordan Devlin is definitely a real standout. When they do the show, I would definitely keep an eye on him.
All right, well, I appreciate the call. Thank you for the feedback. And why don't we wrap things up here? I feel bad. There were so many calls I wasn't able to get to, but we'll do more of these in the future. See, I was using this more as an experiment. Sounds like things went relatively smoothly. I guess I'll find out when I listen back to it. But we'll do more of these in the future. And I like getting feedback from you guys. That's why I do the mailbag on the show every single week. The mailbag segment I do is maybe the most popular segment I do every Sunday. And by the way, if you've never heard a full episode of The Sound Off, I don't know what you're waiting for. You can listen to the podcast each and every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Google Play Music. We're on Audio Boom, Podbean. We have our own free app. If you're an Android user in the Google Play Store. Lots of different ways to listen to the full 2-hour-plus podcast every single weekend. Check out the archives. We are 478 episodes deep. A lot of audio content, a lot of content here on this channel. I would urge you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so here on YouTube. So anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode of Sound Off Extra. Thank you to everybody who took the time to call in, even the people who I wasn't able to get to, unfortunately. I apologize, but we will do more of these in the future. Until next time, be well, stay safe. I will be back with a brand new episode of the full podcast next weekend. So until then, enjoy Raw tonight. I know. But try to enjoy Raw, and we'll see you back here again real soon. Take care, guys.